Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Ian is here today. Hello, Ian.
What up, what up?
Bad weather coming in tonight. Everybody just know that. Just know, Ian, I think it's probably around like when we're going home is when all of this is going to kind of start tonight, but apparently there should be some bad weather in the area. So
yeah, trying to keep up with it.
Everybody be safe. First off the top, I want to thank Caroline and Adam Vingan yesterday for filling in for me on somewhat short notice, and I want to thank Chase for getting that together, and I did listen some yesterday, and I thought they did a fabulous job, so I want to thank them for that. So I want to start with what I wasn't here for yesterday, and that is the news that the Titans have signed Tyler Boyd. And I have two completely separate reactions to the news of the Titans signing Tyler Boyd. One, I think you would argue is a positive take. The other might be considered a negative take. And again, they are completely separate from one another. So, Ian, which one would you like to start off with? Would you like to start off with the positive or would you like to start off with the negative?
Yeah, positive, please.
Okay. It's a great signing. I think it's a great signing by the Titans. I think it's a job well done by Rand Carthon. And I think it's a good signing at up to $4.5 million. And when something is up to $4.5 million, you know what that really means? It means it's not $4.5 million. So the Titans signed Tyler Boyd, a veteran, dependable slot receiver, a position that they didn't have for almost no money. And because I think so little of the tight ends that the Titans have, I'm actually really excited about the signing of Tyler Boyd because, as we always talk about, the tight end is the best friend for the young quarterback, and that's those short, 2 intermediate throws where it's 3rd down and 6 and you throw it 5 yards over and the guy can get you. He knows where the sticks are and he gets you the first down, and Boyd can do that as your slot receiver. Boyd knows the offense. Boyd knows the coach. Boyd knows what the coach expects. And I think, again, Boyd is the type of dependable veteran. I don't think Calvin Ridley's necessarily the dependable veteran here we're talking about, like DeAndre Hopkins or Tyler Boyd. But these guys are dependable veterans, which I think are important for a young quarterback, not just in the sense of, hey, Tyler Boyd will be 6 yards on the in cut when he's expected to be 6 yards on the in cut, but also from the standpoint of Tyler Boyd can take Will Levis to the side and say, hey, man, you got this. You got it. It's And so I love the signing. I mean, I think he's a good player. I don't think he's a great player, but I certainly don't think he's an average player, and I don't think he's a bum. I think he is a good player. He got almost no money. Now, when we went into free agency, and I actually pulled out, if you're looking at the stream, Ian, the free agency board is back. I pulled out the free agency board, the notes on all the potential free agents the Titans could sign that I went over, pre-free agency. And I was not a fan of signing Tyler Boyd as the receiving option. Because when I look at Tyler Boyd's notes, red, it's all color coordinated for me. Blue is just a fact. Green is a good thing. Purple is a signability question mark kind of thing, and red is a bad thing. And the 3 red notes that I have for Tyler Boyd: 1, 85% in the slot in 2023. 2, 1 contested catch in 2023. 3, only 5 deep targets. So when it came to signing Tyler Boyd as the free agent wide receiver, I was against it because I thought they needed somebody on the outside that could run. But they signed a guy on the outside that can run. Calvin Ridley is the free agent wide receiver, and that means that Boyd's not the free agent wide receiver. And in my notes in purple, the signability question, I wrote, do the Titans need a slot wide receiver? If yes, then yes. And they needed a slot receiver, and if we're talking slot, Boyd's a perfect fit. In fact, what's funny is in my notes for Ridley, his only reds were the character concerns and the 7 drops last year. But other than that, his green, which is good, 96.8 grade on deep targets, and a 113 quarterback rating when targeted deep. So again, he's the deep guy. DeAndre is DeAndre. He's going to be intermediate, sometimes deep, sometimes short. You know, you can't match him up with just one corner. He's a contestant. DeAndre is going to be DeAndre. And Boyd is going to be the dependable guy in the slot that is the safe option for Will Levis. I think it's a great signing. So that's the positive take. I mean, again, and the money, again, up to $4.5 million. This reminds me of when the Clowney signing happened, and we were discussing it every day because it was during COVID and there were no other sports and everything else. And I remember as that process was going on, the old man just kept saying, well, this is after the draft. I'm only interested in giving you minimum salary. Now, I can incentivize it to get you whole, but I'm only doing minimum salary. Ha, ha, ha. I mean, it kind of sounds like that's what the Titans did with Tyler Boyd. I have no idea what the officials of the financials are, and I don't necessarily care because I think the cap's fake. But at $4.5 million, I mean, even if he sucks, it's $4.5 million. Holy crap, it's what they paid Aaron Brewer. Think about that. Now, here's the bad. They still don't have a right tackle. Congratulations. You got 3 receivers. You got 2 running backs. You got a left tackle you took high in the draft. You took a guard last year at 11 overall. You think you have a quarterback. Redid the corners. You still don't have a right tackle. And thus, I still don't think this team is any kind of contender. And I think you guys think I'm joking every time I talk about the right tackle or tell the right tackle story or whatever it may be, but I'm not. Because I think that that's a pretty binary discussion, right? It's like, can you win the Super Bowl? Do you have a quarterback? No? Okay, then the answer's no. Well, but you know, Trent Dilfer, he won a Super Bowl. Right, and the guy who coached that team, Brian Billick, went on the midday show at the Super Bowl and said in today's NFL, you can't do that. So, if you don't have the quarterback, you can't win the Super Bowl. Can you be a good team? If you don't have a right tackle, I don't think you can be. And you don't have a right tackle. So, again, I know people are going to get mad at me for bringing this up because everybody wants to live in, we're the most disrespected team land. But signing a slot receiver does not make you a contender. Sorry. And I think the Titans coaching staff actually disagrees with me vehemently about the importance of the right tackle position. And to be honest, as much as I have respect for Brian Callahan, I think that's stupid. I really do. And you can say, oh, Bill Callahan knows more than you do, so I don't care. And that's fine. They all know more than me. Every single coach on that coaching staff knows more than I do. Just like Mike Vrabel knew more than I did. But boy, he loved Andre Dillard and Aaron Brewer. Just like Jason Houdeling knew more than I did. That doesn't mean that he was a great coach. But you guys all know where that right tackle story comes from. And you guys know how smart that guy was. And you know that that guy, and again, his story about the right tackle position, you know that that guy knows more about winning building a winning football team than Bill Callahan does. Because while Bill Callahan might be a great line coach, Bill Callahan was not a great head coach. And you know that. Bill Callahan is not in the Titans Hall of Fame. And the author of the right tackle story is. So while I like the Boyd signing, I think this is exactly what the team needed. I think this is great for Levis. I think the value of the deal, I think it's a great deal. This is like DeAndre's contract. Because last year you signed DeAndre for 13, 14 million, whatever it was. And DeAndre's probably the value in today's NFL of a $22 million receiver. DeAndre was supposed to get 19 from Arizona. He got cut. But as the price rises for these receivers, I mean, I think the value for DeAndre is probably around 32 million or around 22 million bucks. And he's making 13, 14. Boyd, I think, is probably about a $9 million receiver. And he's going to be making up to $4.5 million bucks. So that's a great deal. It's a great value. And I think he's a good player. And you need good players. But to me, this isn't a transformational signing. This isn't the, okay, now we got Tyler Boyd, now we're on our way. And if you talk yourself into that, and I saw some of this on Twitter yesterday, if you talk yourself into that, you're only fooling you. You're only doing that because you want to feel good about your team May, June, July, and August. And then when we kick the football off, you're going to go crazy because, again, you don't have a right tackle. And I'm not going to stop talking about this because that's how important I think this is. So the Boyd signing, congratulations to the Titans. They got a good player yesterday. As far as whether or not this team's going to be competing, that's a different discussion. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. I do not know if this has been fixed or not. Caroline texted me earlier today and said that our text line was down, so I don't know if the text line is working or not. So it may not be. If it's not, it is what it is. I just pulled up the text line, and it says our last text came from customer service at 1:17 p.m., and it says, well, no. We sent it to customer service saying we have not received a text message in 5 hours. Thanks for your help. So don't text in. You're going to have to call. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you want to weigh in here on the program. And I know everybody thinks I'm a Debbie Downer, especially every time I bring up the right tackle position. And you're right. I am, because it is a big deal. But there are a lot of people that think that it's only May. Why should we be mad? We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106 for the game. I'm going to tell you a story. And everybody listening probably knows this story. Robbie knows this story. But years and years ago, when I first started at the radio station, we had the old general manager of the Titans, Floyd Reese, name on the wall over there. Mm-hmm. He was working there, and we ended up working together for about 5 years. But before we were working together, I had just met the guy. And I grew up a huge Titans fan, and so it's like, this is Floyd Reese. So we're doing our first show together, and I'm just trying to, like, break the ice because I don't even know him. So I said, this was 2015. The team was terrible. They were 3-13 that year. I go, Floyd, are the Titans going to be any good this year? This might have been April after the draft. And he looked at me and he goes, we don't have a right tackle. I said, that's important, huh? He said, right tackle? I was like, it's pretty important. So the last couple of years, I feel like I've had to tell that story on the radio a bunch. So right tackle's apparently pretty important. I just, I just want you to know that story so I don't have to tell it anymore on the radio.
I'll say this. Anymore, the way the NFL's set up, everybody's usually has at least one dynamic pass rusher. Mm-hmm. Most of them have two. And so if you don't have two tackles, it's going to be hard.
That was Brian Callahan the day after he got hired, but I guess he doesn't need a right tackle. By the way, that's an oldie but a goodie right there. Frederick says in the YouTube chat, Ian, I'm using the YouTube chat since our text line's down.
Next level.
Frederick says, Jared, we've heard that 100 times. Well, maybe you need to hear it 101. Because, again, the Tennessee Titans do not have a right tackle. And I love this. When people in the month of May go, it's okay to skip over right tackle because they can't fill everything. Heard Koharski today saying, hey, look, they've got a right tackle. It's going to be Nicholas Petit-Frere, a.k.a.
PT,
Jalen Duncan, who sucks, or Leroy Watson, who was acquired for a 7th-round draft choice from the Cleveland Browns, who's played 7 NFL games in his career with 0 starts, which makes me think that that's a guy who goes in there to play on the field goal team. And I don't know how many snaps he's even taken at tackle in his career. And so when people say, you can't fill everything, Jared, I heard Paul saying that today. And what you do when you do that is you're acting as if right tackle is as important as right guard, or that right tackle is as important as inside linebacker or safety. But it's not. It's right tackle. It's like when we read the unnamed executives that talked to Mike Sando in The Athletic, we talked about what they said about the Titans. But I was reading what they had said, the unnamed executives had said about the Denver Broncos. They took Bo Nix with the 12th pick, and everybody laughed at him, at least all of us that thought Bo Nix was worth the 34th pick when they took him 12th. And as I was reading that, I was seeing these executives saying, I don't think Bo Nix is that good, but Sean Payton needed a quarterback, and it wasn't going to be Jarrett Stidham, and if you don't have a quarterback, you're going to draft Bo Nix. Basically, they said he doesn't have a choice. He had to draft Bo Nix once Penix went off the board, and J.J. went 1 pick before. It's you got to draft Bo Nix because you don't have a quarterback. And right tackle is a you-must-fill-it position. It's not to you, but it is to me. And the Titans just continue to refuse to fill it. At least they kind of tried, right? They kind of tried in the offseason of 2019. After the 2019 year, the 2020 offseason, I should say, Conklin leaves as a free agent, which you can complain about it, but they gave Ryan Tannehill $100 million. They thought they were going to have 2 tags. That got changed the week before free agency, and they used the tag on Derrick Henry. But they re-signed Dennis Kelly, and they drafted Isaiah Wilson. Now, Isaiah Wilson was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, but again, they drafted a right tackle, and they signed a guy who, while he's probably a backup, could play right tackle. So at least they kind of tried there. Then they released the guy who was a solid, okay-ish right tackle, the backup, Kelly, and they had to get rid of the guy who was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs because he was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And so they get rid of them, but they, again, kind of try to fill it. They signed Kendall Lamb. And they had Ty Sambrailo, who had played left tackle for him. points the year before. And they drafted Dylan Radins. Again, he kind of stinks, but they're at least trying. Then after that, it's like the Titans just said, screw it. Quessenberry was the right tackle. He was a restricted free agent. They could have given him a right of first refusal tender for $2 million, and they didn't. At right tackle, they're like, nah, let's see if Dylan Radins can do it. I think the quote Vrabel had at the Combine that year was, he's not ready to start right now, but I've charged Keith Carter with having him ready. Oh, God. So they were winging it in 22. It got everybody fired. Then they were winging it again last year. They bring in a right tackle? No! And then when PT got suspended for gambling, they decided, well, you know what, we're going to have to go add a right tackle. And they tried to sell us on OJ as their right tackle. And so then they go out, they got George Fant, who, again, is a legitimate starting NFL tackle. And they're like, no, he's too expensive. Let's sign Chris Hubbard, who hasn't started in 3 years. They're just winging it. So then in comes the new administration, because the last administration was so stupid, especially when it came to that it was like, all right, we know the offensive line's a mess. We know it's the worst offensive line we've ever seen in our entire lives. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to address left tackle, and we're going to address center. But we're going to wing it again at right tackle. And I'm like, oh, God. Oh, God. And I remember when everybody wanted to give Rand Carthon Executive of the Offseason awards, after the first 2 weeks of free agency. And I kept telling people, like, they don't have a right tackle. And people are like, it's only March, Jared. We still have the draft to go. Okay, well, it's May now, and you still don't have a right tackle. And if you don't do something about it in May, you cannot do something about it in September. You want to know how I know this? Because I watched it last year with Dillard. I watched it after the third day of practice. It was obvious that Andre Dillard sucked. It was obvious. Vrabel got asked about it. He made every excuse in the book for why Andre Dillard stunk. One, Arden Key's so good that, of course Arden Key's going to win because he's the great Arden Key. That was the first one. Then there was he's attentive in the meetings. Then there was it takes time for the offensive line in training camp. And unfortunately, these morons actually believed the poop that they were crapping because they left him manned up with Myles Garrett at the end of the first half of the Cleveland game. Now, I got to assume that Brian Callahan is smarter than the bozos last year, but they don't have a right tackle. And then you guys get mad at me. You guys say, oh, God, here goes Jared for the 1800th time bitching about right tackle. Right. Because they never do anything about it. They didn't do anything about it in 2021. They didn't do anything about it in 2022. They didn't do anything about it in 2023. They're not doing anything about it in 2024. The only thing that they've done about right tackle in 2024 is set up the ability that if the 7th overall pick can't play left tackle, then they can move him to right tackle. This isn't guard. This isn't inside linebacker. This isn't punter. This is right tackle. So if you don't want to hear this story again, go root for a team that actually gives a rat's ass about the right tackle position. And then you won't have to hear it. It's like when, Bally Sports, they got the thing, or Comcast, they got the thing on Bally Sports. It's like, call this number to demand that they get Bally Sports. It's like, call this number to demand that your team get a right tackle. And people will say, well, Jared, who could they have gotten at right tackle? I got a list in front of me. You guys know if you listen to the show, I wanted Jermaine Illuminor from the Las Vegas Raiders, who is now going to be, I think, the right tackle of the New York Giants. Why'd I want Jermaine Illuminor? Not because he's a superstar, because he can play right tackle. I wanted them to trade for Morgan Moses when I found out he was on the block and the Jets acquired him by swapping 4th-round picks. That's all it would have taken. A swap of a 4th-round pick with the Ravens, and you'd have had a right tackle. And for whatever reason, either the Ravens didn't call him or they weren't interested. Because, again, They think PT, Jalen Duncan, and Leroy Watson, they think those guys are good enough to play right tackle. I mean, Ian, didn't I say, I don't know if you've got the calling it list in front of you.
Calling it list?
Yes.
Yes, I do.
Okay. I'm pretty sure I called it I don't think I guaranteed this, but I think I called it at the end of last season that Dylan Radins was going to end up as the Titans' right tackle in 2024. Not that they wanted him to be the right tackle, but that they were going to do something stupid, and somehow after 3 games, they were going to realize that Radins is the best guy on the team to play right tackle, which right now I think he is, and that Radins would end up being the right tackle of the Titans, even though we all kind of think Radins stinks.
I don't have that on a calling it. The most 2 recent calling it's I have, Jared says Will Levis will be the backup quarterback for the Titans week 1 versus the Saints.
I lost that one.
That was wrong. And then Hopkins signs with the Titans. You did call that, so that was correct.
So
but I got nothing on
I
Radins.
said in December, I was late in the year, I was Radins is going to be the right tackle next year. I was he's going to be the right tackle because what's going to happen is the Titans are going to try to cheap their way out of the right tackle position. And so when they do that, and I don't know why, you don't have to cheap your way out of it. You gave a running back $8 million. You already had a running back. But again, they were going to try to finagle their way at the right tackle position. And what's going to happen is they're going to realize all the finagling they did is worth nothing. And they're going to end up sticking Radins back there. Even though right now Radins is technically a guard, they're going to put PT out there. He's going to stink. Then they're going to try the next guy. Duncan does stink. And then they're going to try to put Leroy Watson out there, and I assume he's probably a practice squad player because that's what he's been in his career. And then for the bulk of the season, Radins will be playing right tackle. I felt that way, but I kind of felt that way last year because I felt like Vrabel was going to be, with PTE can do it. And then, his crummy coaching staff was going to, yes, this, yes, that, whatever it may be. And I guess Floyd Reese knows nothing about football. I guess you don't need a right tackle. 615-737-1025. We'll get to some of your phones. 615-737-1025. And by phones, I mean actual phones. I guess I could use the YouTube chat and I could use Twitter, but quite frankly, with the text line being down, it is what it is. We'll do that coming up. And now that Tyler Boyd is a Titan, what does it mean for Treylon Burks? I got a thought on that. We'll do that coming up next. Let's talk Window Nation. I love Window Nation. Did you know that it is Window Nation's semi-annual sale? And it is a big deal because right now you can get 50% off all windows along with no interest for 5 years. Plus, bonus savings when you schedule a consult today. I had a consult. It was wonderful. They really, really do a fabulous job. They're not trying to sell you on stuff. They're trying to get you the best value for your home, and I know that because they did that with me. If your windows leak, get foggy or hot, or you're paying high utility bills, that is a big deal. And with Window Nation's semi-annual sale, you can replace your windows and save a big deal too. So schedule a no-obligation in-home estimate now by calling 866-90NATION or visiting windownation.com. Again, that's 50% off all windows and no interest for 5 years. 866-90NATION, windownation.com.
stop it on Twitter with this immediate, like, have to trade Burks now. We've got a fourth receiver. We got to get rid of him. He might be good, and we might have a fourth good receiver who isn't on the field in the lineup at the opening snap. Got to get rid of him. Got to get rid of him. You're allowed to have a fourth guy. You're allowed to have a fifth guy. I know this is incredibly unusual that the Titans have conceivably have depth at a position where usually they suck. But this is allowed, and it's good. Wish for him to play well, to be healthy, and to give them a problem where a guy who's good there might not be enough snaps for him.
Hey, that was PK earlier today on with Robbie and Joe, and I know, hey, they don't have to trade Treylon Burks. They don't, but I'll say this. If Treylon Burks is on the 2024 Tennessee Titans, it's because they can't find a 2025 fifth-rounder or better for him. I mean, I think that, again, bringing in Tyler Boyd is a sign that they're done. They don't want Treylon Burks. They didn't draft Treylon Burks. They didn't trade A.J. Brown for Treylon Burks. They've never coached Treylon Burks. They don't want him. And thus, I don't expect them to keep him. But I don't think they're going to cut him. The money's guaranteed. Anytime you take a draft choice, their money's fully guaranteed. It's the same reason why Malik Willis is still on the team. But here's why I don't expect the Titans to keep Treylon Burks. Because if you can trade him and, again, get a 2025 fifth rounder or better in return, then if he's on your team, you're on the hook for paying him for 2 years. But he's the fourth wide receiver. And the fourth wide receiver, active on game day, needs to play special teams. Like, if you're going to be the fourth active receiver, you're not going to carry 9 receivers into a game. So if you're going to be the fourth active receiver, you have to play special teams. Burks does not. Thus, when looking at the game plan, he would be the big picture. You would be having this guy who you'd be paying, and again, the money's guaranteed, and you'd be deactivating him every single week. And then you'd have him there in case somebody gets hurt, as opposed to players on your team that, you want to have on the team so that they can play in the games. So then the conversation comes up of, okay, what would you rather have? Would you rather have a guy who's inactive on game day, who you're going to have for the next 2 years, and then you're going to get rid of him? Or would you rather trade that for a draft choice that you can use to either, acquire another player or use for 4 future years, which you would get with a 4th or 5th round draft pick? And my gut is the Titans rather have the future draft pick and the future 4 years of contractual control. Thus, I don't expect Treylon Burks to be on this team. Now, when they move him, that's an interesting question. My gut tells me they probably move Treylon Burks after training camp. So you go through training camp, you look at your roster, say, okay, Jaquan Jackson's better than we think he's going to be. So Boyd, Hopkins, Ridley, Jackson, NWI, and then there's Phillips and Burks, or maybe somebody else is a better special teams player, Kyrus Jackson, and you're like, we'd really like to keep Kyrus Jackson, so what we're going to do is we're going to trade Treylon Burks. And that happens all the time. Philadelphia did that with Jalen Reagor a couple years ago. I think Minnesota also did it at one point with Jalen Reagor, or the Patriots did it with Jalen Reagor. Somebody did it. I think Jalen Reagor, that's happened to twice. That's how you got Dennis Kelly. Now, I'm not saying that this is how you're going to get, the next Dennis Kelly, because, Lord, after all my right tackle talk, would it be nice to have the next Dennis Kelly? But that's how you got Dennis Kelly, was a training camp trade of a wide receiver who was drafted high that you didn't want anymore. And so I expect that between either there being a guy that another team, probably an NFC team, has on their roster, probably a new coaching staff or a new general manager, a new front office, they'll probably have a guy on their team that is decent and they would like to keep, but they don't because of the numbers. And so they kind of in a rock and a hard place here. And you might have a use for them because, He's a better edge rusher than our fourth edge rusher than Thomas Rush. So what we're going to do is we're going to release Thomas Rush, and instead of releasing Treylon Burks or releasing Kearis Jackson, what we're going to do is trade Treylon Burks for that guy, and we're going to keep Kearis Jackson. So I do not expect Treylon Burks to be on this football team, though I don't think it's as easy as giving him up for a bag of chips. Again, I think it is the equivalent of a fifth-rounder next year or better, or a player at a position that you like. And then that way you don't have to battle the waiver wire in order to wait on that guy and, the other 6 teams that would pick in front of you. Phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Text lines down, but that doesn't mean the phones aren't. Adam in Portland's been waiting patiently. He's up next here on the program. Adam, go ahead.
Yeah, so a couple things. Number one, y'all be careful this evening, man. It's going to be bad. So it's pretty wild. I don't like how they haven't addressed tight end one bit. It feels like we have Michael Pruitt and Anthony Ferkser as our tight ends. I don't know why Chig got all this hype. The whole time he's made 2 catches that were decent. I can't even remember what they were, but I know he did. I think Jonnu was 10 times better than he's ever been. And I think the right tackle. I want some days to where I don't have to completely disagree with you. I think your right tackle thing is too played out. We don't know what this offensive line coach is going to be. And you agreed coming in, right, that you can't fix everything. So there's going to be
no. There are some positions, though, that you have to fix, and that's one of them.
Okay, but there's some of them that you're not you just don't have resources.
So you don't hear me yelling about tight end. And I agree 100% with you about tight end. I think Chig sucks, and I've said it time and time again. And you have heard me, again, I'm on your side with this, but I don't complain about tight end. I don't complain about inside backer. I don't complain about right guard, and I don't complain about safety, because I think you can fudge it at those positions and get away with it. I don't think you can do that at right tackle, and I think what everybody's doing is they're conflating that with the other positions, thinking you can get away with it at right tackle.
But my problem is, man, tight end, when was the last time you saw a team go super deep that had a tight end as bad as ours? That's my thing. If you're going to fix it, I think you're yelling about the wrong position. That's my take for the day.
Well, there's in no planet. Thank you for calling. In no planet is tight end more valuable than right tackle. It's just not. Now you would say, well, the Chiefs, that I actually think the Chiefs are paying Jawan Taylor, and I know he sucks. I think they might be paying him more than Travis Kelce. They absolutely were paying him more before the extension that Kelce signed last week. They still might be paying him more. The right tackle, again, you're the only organization I can think of in the NFL that literally doesn't give a rat's ass about right tackle, and it doesn't matter who the coach or the general manager is, apparently. It's wild. It's unbelievable to me. But I agree with Adam's take about tight end. I'm not happy about tight end. I think Chig stinks. I don't think Chig can catch the ball. I think Chig is a good backup tight end. That if you had a number 1 tight end, who's a better inline blocker than Chig and more reliable at catching the ball, probably not as explosive, but again, more reliable at moving the chains and catching the ball and everything else. I think if you had that tight end, you'd be in a much better spot with Chig as your number 2 tight end and getting the occasional explosive play out of him. Now, tight end does take a little bit of time to develop, so maybe, Chig's inability to catch the ball last year, maybe that is behind him. But I'm not putting my chips in the middle on Chig. But again, I'm not complaining about tight end as far as the Titans just getting by. Inside backer, you guys want to start the 106th pick. You want to give him the green dot as your main inside backer. Really? But you don't hear me complaining about that. But I do. Right tackle, yes. And the thing Adam said, I think a lot of people probably believe. You talk about that too much. And guess what? It's not going to stop. Because, what's the point of me? We're talking about the Titans every day. What's the point of me not talking about it when I think it is so important that it might bomb your entire season? I gave Andre Dillard the benefit of the doubt last offseason. But let's say I didn't. And I knew Andre Dillard was going to be as bad as Andre Dillard was. Don't you think it would have been worth complaining about every single day? That this one guy is so bad that it doesn't matter what else you do the rest of the season because that guy's so bad he can take your whole team down. That's how I feel about right tackle. 615-737-1025. Chris Sanders will join us next. Former Titans receiver will get his thoughts on how the Titans go about rebuilding, as they're trying on the fly here, adding Tyler Boyd. Is it a rebuild? Is it not? What's he think about Boyd? We'll do that next. Here on Stillman and Company, 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you want to weigh in here on the show. Join Cromwell Media along with local athletes, musicians, and the like at Hermitage Golf Course on June 20th for the 615 Open and make a difference while supporting Souls for Souls. For every $20 raised, it'll go to a new pair of shoes for a local child experiencing homelessness. Sign up to play or sponsor at 615open.com. The Tennessee Titans have added Tyler Boyd at wide receiver for up to $4.5 million, which means it's not really $4.5 million, which I think is a pretty good deal. I think Boyd's pretty good, especially at the slot position. You can't ask him to run down the field. That's not what he does, but that's what they need. And I think it's good news. So it is Wednesday, which means we are joined by former Titans receiver Chris Sanders here on the program, but it's not just any Wednesday because Chris, I have been informed that today is the 51st anniversary of the birth of Christopher Dwayne Sanders.
Hey, this is the reason why I love you, man, because actually you said 51st. I'm 52 years old, man.
52. Wikipedia needs to step it up. I didn't feel like doing the math on my own. I guess, I could have done that too and then before, so should have done that. Happy 52nd birthday, Chris.
Man, it means a lot, man. I just thank God I made it to 52 and just appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to do that for me, Jay. I love you, brother.
And we were all worried that you wouldn't. I'm kidding. Okay, your thoughts on Tyler Boyd to the Titans?
Champ, absolutely love it. And the reason why I love it is because you just said it before we got on the air is you found a reliable slot receiver. And here's the thing that I love about them picking up Boyd is the experience that he has. He has 582 snaps in the slot. And you look at NWI, who only caught 28 passes in the slot. You got Phillips that caught 17 passes in the slot. So now you got Boyd that has experience, that understands how to get open, understand how to run the choice routes, and it's just going to be a safety net when things break down on the outside for Will Levis.
So I like the signing. I think it's a good signing. I like the value of the signing. But I keep going back to this, which is that they don't have a right tackle. And every time I bring that up, somebody gets mad at me. They say, stop talking about it. But, I mean, again, I said this last segment. I go, if I had spent every day talking about how bad Andre Dillard was going to be, you guys would have said the same thing. And then you get to the season, and it's like, oh, wow, this really is a huge problem. So I wonder this question for you. You are the inventor of the nickname PT for Nicholas Petit-Frere. I do wonder, do you really think that Bill Callahan can take the same guys who weren't good at right tackle in the past and make them good this year?
Yeah, I really think so, because the thing about it is, I mean, we always talk about, coaches being teachers, and when you be a teacher, you can teach in the right techniques. But here's the thing, there's just so many things that you can also do when you have a guy that has inexperience. What you do is you go a 12 personnel, one back, two tight ends, and kind of help him earlier in the games until he builds his confidence. So when you have a coach like that with Bill Callahan and he finds out his weaknesses, get him a little confidence, get him a little oomph, and I think that Bill Callahan can make an adjustment to where he can play right tackle.
What if he can't, though? And then
don't be so negative. No.
But then at that point, you've got nothing at the position. I'd rather bring somebody in and Bill Callahan coach PT up, and then it's like, hey, PT's actually good. Let's put him in. Then, well, we're all banking on PT, and if it doesn't work, we're screwed at right tackle.
Yeah, I mean that's a great assessment, but at the end of the day, I mean, this is a make it or break it year for him. So I think he's going to come in and make sure that he's ready. And the thing about it is, it's not just. You mean
he won't be hitting the parlays in the facility this time?
No, I just think that he's got to really sit down and really talk to him. And when I say really talk to him, is do a lot of film work and say, okay, look at your feet, look at your hand, look at your placement, look at when that guy comes off the edge, and all those things. And once he gets an understanding of the technique, then now he can play fast. So it's just going to take maybe one or two games to kind of get there. And I know that sounds kind of crazy, but at the end of the day, you have a great coach in Bill Hand, and he's going to teach him what he needs to know.
Chris Sanders is with us. Chris, how much do you look at Treylon Burks' situation now, given that they brought in Calvin Ridley, they brought in Tyler Boyd, they've brought in those guys, and yet he's still on the roster. How much do you look at that, and does it remind you of your own situation in 98 and 99 and 2000 when the team was bringing in Kevin Dyson and Yancey Thigpen and Carl Pickens, even though you were on the roster? And while you didn't play as much in 99 and 2000 when all the injuries hit, you and Derek lit it up, and you had 6 catches over 35 yards.
Yeah, you just got to make every play count. I mean, I know it sounds kind of cliche. You got two choices, and I know you hate when I say you got a choice to get
I don't hate it. I think it's great.
Or get better, because at the end of the day, I'm going to give you a perfect example. I'm going to put myself in his shoes, because when they did that in 1998, when they got Yancey Thigpen and Kevin Dyson, I was upset. I sat down in my basement, kind of soaking in my sorrow, but I had to pull up my britches and say this: I'm going to play so well that they have to play me. And when there's a big play that needed to be made on the field, I was in the game. Yes, I was a third receiver. Yes, they were counting on Kevin Dyson and Yancey Thigpen. But when the game was on the line, they made sure that I was in the game. And I'm gonna give you another example. This is a guy who I really love is Derek Mason. Derek Mason going into the Super Bowl. Derek was the sixth receiver. Derek was the sixth receiver at that time. So what Derek did is he kept working. He kept listening to the coaches. He didn't complain. He didn't have an attitude. He just worked. And now he's one of the best receivers to ever come out of the Tennessee Titans history of all times. Now you got Treylon Burks' situation. Now you got Boyd. Now you got Hopkins. Now you got all these guys that they have in there, and they're not counting on you. So what you do is you go in there, you look film, you get on the field, and you consistently show up on the field. And when you consistently show up in the field, Bill Callahan is going to find a place for you to play. Why? Because you're consistently showing up on the field.
Bill's the line coach. Brian's the head coach. Though I do think a lot of Titan fans are treating this team like Bill Callahan's the GM and the head coach, which is kind of annoying as far as that's concerned. Do you think if you were in his shoes and you played in a different era of the NFL, do you think that he would want a trade?
You know what? I think. Can I just put yourself in my shoes? You know, when I was sitting there when they brought all those guys in, my first inclination is I want to trade. I want to be out of here. I don't want no parts of this organization. That's how I initially felt. But what I had to do is I had to tell my emotions to shut up, because my emotions were telling me that they don't care about me, that, you know, all this crazy stuff that I was thinking in my mind. And I know Burks is actually thinking the exact same thing. You know, they brought in Boyd. They're bringing in all these receivers to replace me. So instead of letting your emotions lie to you learn the playbook in and out. Run your route, every route with intensity. You know, catch every pass being intentful. And when you do that, your play is going to overshadow what's going on. Because even though we have all these guys with Ridley, Hopkins, and Boyd, what if one of those guys get hurt? What if those other two guys get hurt and you didn't do what you're supposed to do and you're not ready and prepared? So be prepared like you're the starter, and when you get a chance, you're going to actually play.
Somebody said in this YouTube chat, Chris, they said, can the Titans please just get a right tackle so Jared can finally shut up? Even though I agree that it's beyond annoying at this point.
God.
What? Be honest with me here.
Sure.
Do you think right tackle is as important as I think it is?
I mean, it is important, because you look at it last year. What was Achilles' heel of the Tennessee Titans last year? It was the offensive line. We can have all these skilled players. We can have Ridley. We can have Hopkins. We can have Boyd. We can have Pollard. We can have Spears. We can have all those guys. But if you don't have an offensive line that can block, it's not going to make a difference. If you look at last year, the offensive line gave up 64 sacks. So even though you may have all these skilled guys, if your offensive line can't block or run or run block and all those things, it's not going to make a difference. So I agree with you to an extent to where you need a right tackle, but I keep going back to what I'm saying is Bill Callahan's going to make sure this guy's right.
Chris Sanders, as always, on his birthday. Chris, great stuff. Happy birthday. We love you. Also,
Appreciate
stay safe
you,
out there with the weather that's going to be coming up, and we will talk soon.
Love you, brother. Thank you, man. Bye.
Yep, Chris Sanders on his birthday. JC says in the YouTube chat, I find it so hilarious. This guy cried like a baby on draft night that they took a right tackle, and all this guy does every single day is complain about the right tackle position. Ian, they didn't take a right tackle on draft night.
Maybe right, maybe left.
They took their left tackle on draft night. They didn't take a right tackle. Now, if he plays right tackle, then great. Then we won't have to tell the right tackle story anymore. But then you won't have a left tackle, and that's the problem. You guys can get mad at me all you want. I just don't want the same repeats of the last couple of seasons. And apparently you guys think that running it back with the same players is going to be fine. Like Chris said, oh, no, Bill Callahan, he's got it. He'll fix it. Don't worry about it. 615-737-1025. Let's give away something because I'm in a good mood. It's Chris's birthday, for crying out loud. Let's give away a pair of tickets to Breaking Benjamin at F&M Bank Arena on May 15th. 615-737-1025. Be caller 5. Those are yours. Plus, Barry Trotz and Andrew Burnett yesterday met with the media to wrap up the season, and I think there's some good, and I think there's some bad. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. I do just want to keep everybody apprised of the fact that right now Fox 17 has code red weather with a tornado watch issued for much of the mid-state and Kentucky until 9 o'clock, and that flash flooding also remains a top concern. So, if you don't need to be at work, get your tush home, because around about 5 o'clock, it could be pretty bad. So just kind of keep that in mind. So Barry Trotz and Andrew Burnett yesterday had their end of the season media availability, kind of the season in review, off-season preview, whatever you want to call it, press conference the Predators have at the end of every year. And I thought there was some good, and I thought there was some bad. Now, all I look for when it comes to these end of season media availabilities is I just want to know that the people that make the decisions for my teams, whether it's football, hockey, basketball, baseball, whatever, I just want to know that they're smelling the same pot of coffee I'm smelling. That's what I want to know. You know, and sometimes we get things like a couple years ago after they got swept against Colorado, and it was like, tear it down, you can't compete, don't worry. And it was like, no, we think we're one or two players away. It's like, oh, no. And yesterday I thought that the Predators brass embraced a lot of reality. So to me, I think there was a lot of good. The first good thing is this, and that is I came away from that thinking that Barry Trotz knows they have to get scoring from off of the roster. You know, this isn't going to be 90% of what you have now is good enough to compete for a cup. And I think he knows that. So when Trotz says drafting and free agency are going to be really important, to me, he's telling you what the goal is to finally end the hunt of the big boy forward. Here's what Barry Trotz said yesterday.
You're going to have to put a big value on free agency or trades going forward, you know, and we have some of those assets. We also have some of those, we're going to have that ability for free agency. Nashville is a destination team. Look at the last year's Stanley Cup champions. They didn't really use much of the draft. So there's different ways of doing it. But we have some draft capital that will allow us to be flexible and use those assets to acquire. And that's what we're going to have to do.
So Barry Trotz is telling you, we're going to have to go trade for Jack Eichel or Noah Hannafin like Vegas has. We're going to have to trade for Matthew Tkachuk the way that Florida has. We're not going to be able – we're going to have to sign Artemi Panarin the way the Rangers have. He's telling you, he does not think that they can win by running it back with Forsberg and those guys and maybe, okay, well, now Thomasino's ready. Let's try him out. Let's go add Nino Niederreiter. No. He's telling you, we got to figure this out. We got to draft David Pastrnak at 25, or we got to draft Sebastian Aho in the second round. We got to develop him, and we got to, we got to do it outside the organization. Which again, that is a pot of coffee that I'm smelling. The second thing is I think he recognizes the quote unquote Predators purgatory, which is they're good enough to make the playoffs and they have a fun season, and then they're never good enough to beat anybody in the playoffs. And the difference though between Trotz and the previous administration is I believe Barry Trotz knows that if they don't do something about it, they will end up in the same spot every year. Thus, there is a chance that they may get worse by getting younger. Here's what Barry Trotz said yesterday.
A couple of goals going forward. We're going to be a little bit younger. I want to be a little bit faster. I want to build that top nine. I think I talked about that from day one. I think that's the way of the future.
So he's telling you, we got to get younger. And getting younger might not necessarily mean right away getting better. But it's not going to be, let's just keep going back with the same guys and seeing if something else changes. Thank God. The third good thing, I think Trotz is glad that they got rid of the Johansson, Duchesne era, and that with O'Reilly and that group that the culture is better. And for me, it felt that way watching it as a fan. I think that's good. Barry Trotz said yesterday he's not completely willing to tear it down, which a lot of fans want him to do, and just completely start from scratch. Here's what he said.
It's only the start. One of the things that, like I said, it's sad. It's an ending point for this part of the journey, but it's the start of a new journey, and that new journey with a good foundation that was already set by this group. It's going to be exciting. I think, as a young general manager, my first year trying to sort of navigate through this, I've been very forthright. This for a fan base, I think I said, enjoy this journey. I don't know what the journey is going to be. It's going to be a journey. It's not always going to be a straight line, because we're all human, and life's not always perfect. So, but this is the start. It's not the end. It's something that we're going to continue to build the next couple of years here.
And then when talking about the idea of sucking like everybody else does in order to get McDavid, McKinnon, Matthews, Trotz says we're not doing that.
If you want to be the worst team, it doesn't mean you're getting the best player. There's no guarantees. And, I look at organization like there's a couple of organizations in the NHL have been in a rebuild for a dozen years. I don't feel that was ever necessary. I think there's good enough players, and we're in a good enough situation as an organization and a destination that we can find our way with different navigation than, be the worst team, get the best player, and try to rebuild for 8 or 10 years.
He's not sucking on purpose. The final good thing I heard, this is probably more personal than it is actually the team, and what really matters, because I don't think anybody really cares about this. But Andrew Burnett yesterday made it pretty clear to me that he's done wasting everybody's time with Cody Glass. For the last 4 years, it's been Cody Glass was picked high in the draft. You watch, Jared. He'll develop into a star. Remember Hal said that? He's going to be a star. And then John Hines freaking loved Cody Glass, and they had that emotional moment where he made the team and he got to go to Prague, and it was Cody Glass, Cody Glass. Cody Glass was picked high in the 2017 draft. Did you know that? And honestly, I'm sick and tired of waiting for Cody Glass. I don't think he's very good. And Andrew Burnett made it obvious yesterday he's done waiting for Cody Glass too.
I think he's got to find himself a little bit. I think he lost a lot of confidence, and I think he lost himself a little bit on the way. I think he lost a little bit of his reason why. Why does he play? So I think he's on his own little journey of finding that. He has the skills. He has all the skills in the world. He had a tough year. He got hurt. Lost his mojo. Came back. Got hurt for a shift, and then he just had trouble getting his feet underneath him the rest of the year. So for him, I think it's a complete reset. Find his reason why he plays, and come to camp. Kind of talk to him today that he's got to make the team, and he's going to have to put a really hard summer in, working on his body, working on his game, and working on his mental fortitude here to come to camp and earn a spot.
He's got to figure out his reason why. He's got to come back with his mental fortitude. He's got to make the team. Damn. I mean, right, he views him the way the Titans view Treylon Burks. And I'm glad, because I'm tired of the Cody Glass talk. Now the bad. So I agree with all of that. The number one bad thing is that Barry Trotz made it clear yesterday he wants to re-sign UC Saros. And I just do not believe in that. I just think it is time to move on. I think Saros is good. I don't think he's great. I think it is time to, I think it's time to move on. I think it's time to trade him. I think it's time to take the money that you're paying him now and the money that you're going to pay him and take it and give it to skaters. And you've got Askarov down in the minor leagues. It's time. And Barry Trotz, I think, made it clear yesterday that he doesn't believe that. Here's what Barry Trotz said.
Well, I can't do anything till July 1, really, but we'll be in talks. I'm sure it's not going to be definitely a July 1 announcement. Probably, I think it's going to be a process with his representatives. But I do know this that Juice wants to be here, and he's been a big part of it, and I'd like him to be here. So we're going to work hard at getting that, something done with him.
No. I don't. Again, look, I like Barry Trotz. You guys know that, but I vehemently disagree with this. I mean, if UC Saros, I heard Willie talking about this on the midday show right when they signed off before we came on. And Willie, Caroline was talking about, well, I think I'd rather have a skater than a good goalie. And Willie was like, an elite goalie. And I'm like, if he's such an elite goalie, don't you think by now he'd win a playoff series? Don't you think he'd be able to win one? So to me, I just think it's business, and I don't want Saros on this team anymore. It's time to move on. All good things must come to an end. It's time to move on, baby. And I really thought Barry was in the same place I was. Not to say that Barry had said anything that made me think that, but I really thought it because, again, I think that Barry Trotz and I have kind of a pretty, I think a pretty good relationship on the air, and he lets us in a lot, and I think I've got a pretty good idea where this thing's headed. And I just don't think you're getting enough bang for your buck with Saros, and you're going to have to pay him more. And you took a guy 11th overall 4 years ago. So, I mean, seriously. So that's the bad thing. Then there were two other bad things I didn't like. I did not like both Brunette and Trotz, guys that I think are straight shooters and winners. They were up there yesterday talking about the Vancouver series. Not that I'm all worked up about the Vancouver series, and they should have won the Vancouver series. But they were up there talking about it feels like we should have won. And normally in a 7-game series, the better team wins. But this time I don't feel that way. And I don't. Guys, that's what losers say. You guys did not win because your team could not keep the lead in Game 4. You pooped your pants in that 12-second period in Game 1, and nobody on this team could grab the bull by the horns and put the puck past a third-string goalie on Friday night. That's why you lost. And this idea of, they deserved to win. No, they didn't. They deserved to lose, and they did lose. And again, I'm not crushing them over it. I'm not mad about it. I'm not anything. But I don't want to hear it sucks that we're not playing, and I think we should have played, and if it had bounced our way, and I don't like that. Let's just nip that in the bud right now. And then finally, Barry talked over and over and over again about the fourth line. That's great, but I don't care about the fourth line. You should be able to go get fourth liners from Milwaukee. And I'm glad that he signed those guys, and he's not paying them any money, and he's going to sign Sherwood. He's probably going to pay him, the same $1 million he's paying Cole Smith. But the fourth line is not going to make or break this team. You're not going to win the Cup next year because you brought your fourth line back, or because Kiefer Sherwood left as a free agent, and you went to Milwaukee, and you called up Zachary LaRue, and you stuck him there. So I don't care about the fourth line. I mean, they play hard, and I like that. And, during the season, they were bang for their buck. But as far as oh, man, this is a big deal for us to worry about this season, that fourth line, no. So I love the fact that I do think Barry knows, hey, the hunt for the big boy forward continues, and they're going to have to figure it out one way or another. That I think it's good. I think it's good to know that this team has to get younger. I think it's good to know that, hey, they may have to take a step back trying to not end up in the same place over and over and over again. And I'm glad that they're not going to try to completely tear it down or waste our time with Cody Glass. I don't like the idea of signing Saros to an extension. I don't like it. I don't believe in it. And I also don't like the loser talk. Other than that, I mean, I think they're headed in the right direction. And on the Saros front, maybe Trotz is just saying it to say it. Because what good would it do if he got up there and said, we're going to trade him? But I really hope that they're not seriously considering signing UC Saros, and I don't know how you can hear that and not think that they are. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Add that to the list. Again, our text messages are down today, so, I mean, if we have to pull from the YouTube chat, I guess we'll pull from the YouTube chat or whatever it may be. And then Barry Trotz was asked about Askarov. And there was something he said about Askarov that made me think that there is something that maybe those optimistic or old school of folk may believe that I absolutely think is not applicable to this situation. It is not realistic. It is not feasible. And I worry if the Predators think it might be. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Hey, a reminder, the Sounds are on the road today, taking on Durham at 5:35 on 94.9 The Fan.
He's very close, but with goaltenders, you can never over marinate goaltenders. So if the right fit is there, then he might have some more time. But if not, we can go in a different direction. But that direction is not quite clear. But we're going to do what's best for us as an organization, and also for the growth of young Askarov.
That was Barry yesterday saying, we don't know when Askarov's going to be ready, and, you can never over-marinate the goalie, and so we'll see, and play him down there at AHL and Milwaukee, whatever. And I heard that, and it only popped into my head as like oh no. Because of what I heard Willie talking about earlier in the day, when he went in studio with Robbie and Joe. Ian, did you hear this yesterday morning, Willie in studio with Robbie and Rex Roden?
Yes, I did.
I thought it was fabulously entertaining.
I thought it was good, yeah.
Listening to them yell at each other about the goalie. I thought it was, better than when Paul's on. I thought it was, I really thought that it was incredibly entertaining, and it absolutely got me triggered when Willie said this. And let me say, I love Willie with all of my heart. I do. And I wish I could live my life as positively as Willie Donick does. I think I'd be a happier person. I love Willie Donick. You know that. But when I heard Willie say this yesterday morning, I about screamed. I was so mad. Play the cut.
I just don't think Askarov is in the next year or two ready to be a starter.
So let me
He's
ask
not
you
ready.
this, real quickly on that. Let's say Saros gets a long-term deal here. How long are you willing to go with Askarov as the backup? If Saros is on a 6-year deal, is Askarov waiting 6 years? Like, what do you do?
I think you for about 2 or 3 years have him penciled in as your backup,
okay,
and you evaluate as you go. But I think you sell him. First of all, I think Askarov is frustrated to the point. I think part of why he's not doing well, it's a big part, because I think there's a lot of people that think, well, you just trade Saros and put Askarov in there as your starter. I've got big problems with that.
Okay. 2 or 3 years? What? No. No. You do not draft somebody 11th overall in 2020 to play them in 2027. No, you don't do that. He's 21 years old, which means he's probably 4 years away from his prime. Well, that doesn't mean you can't play before your prime. I'm sorry. He dominated the minor leagues this year.
He could still be the backup.
He's ready for the major leagues. And the Predators, this is a cap with a league with a real cap, although I would say that Vegas is pushing the envelope as to whether or not the NHL's cap is real. And the money is finite. And so you cannot pay the goalie $7 million, $8 million. You cannot pay the goalie $8 million when you've got the 11th overall pick sitting the bench for 2 or 3 years. No. That is Fantasy Island. That is, UC Saros is my blankie and I can't give it up. That's what this is. And let me say this about the Boo-hoo Saros crew and the fact that, I love Saros. We can't give him up. We can't. He's an elite goalie. He's this. He hasn't won anything. He doesn't win anything. And he's not gonna win anything. So at some point, you got to move on. It doesn't mean that I don't love him. I do. It doesn't mean that he's a bad guy. He's not. It doesn't mean that he's not a great Predator. He is. But at some point, in order to justify the money and this sacred cowism, you have to win something.
So the Predators haven't won a series because of Saros?
Yes.
Okay.
That Arizona bubble series was a trash. Now, he didn't play in the Colorado series, and even if he had lost that, it wouldn't have been his fault.
And he cost them the Carolina series? And he
I think
cost them the
actually played okay in
Vancouver
the Carolina series. But I am putting the Vancouver series, you got it 3 minutes to go, you got to win that game. And that's why you didn't win this series. And I'm putting that on the goalie.
They scored like 12 goals in 6 games. And he gave up, 13 or something?
Greg Maddux used to say at some point, you got to pitch your team to victory. And at some point, your goalie has to steal a series.
That's
if he's an
asking too
elite
much.
goalie.
You got to score more than that.
Pecorine stole series.
But the
he
team
stole
scored.
the Anaheim series. He stole the Detroit series, and he stole the Chicago series, and he stole the other Anaheim series.
He stole certain games. Not the
No, he
entire
stole that series. He stole that Chicago Blackhawks series. And he stole that Anaheim Ducks series in 2017.
when Sisson scored a hat trick.
Yeah, when they shot it 12 times and
They scored
Anaheim
6 goals
shot
in a
it
game?
40-something times. Yes.
Well, they scored 6 goals. So the Preds have not scored 6 goals in a game
The
for Saros in a
deciding
playoff
game of that series was Game 5, and Rene stole it. And again, Saros doesn't do that. And so the Boohoo Saros crew is so afraid to give up. I'm sorry. He's a good goaltender. He's not a great goaltender. He's not an elite goaltender. He is not
He's
an
top
elite
5 in the
goaltender.
league.
Whatever. He's not an elite goaltender. He does not steal series. And then the other part about this that I think is infinitely as important is that goaltending is not a premium in the NHL. Good goaltending does not equal winning. Look at Winnipeg. Colorado, they could put Johnny Joseph in goal and it doesn't matter. And that's the point. Like, that's why when it's like, oh no, we have to have all these unbelievable, this unbelievable transition plan from Saros to Askarov. And if we don't do that, I mean, what's going to happen? Okay. Here's what's going to happen. If you trade Saros and Askarov is not ready, you're going to lose some. That's the risk you take. If you trade Saros and you realize that Askarov needs to be in Milwaukee some more, which, again, 3rd year there, does he really need 3 years in the minor leagues? But again, send him to the minor leagues. Then Cam Talbot is your starting goalie, and you'll be average. And what's the difference between average and in the 8th spot and a little bit above average and the 7th spot and losing in the first round to a team with a 3rd-string goalie? I'm sorry. At some point, Saros has to win, and he does not win. And they flashed it up there at the Game 7 of the Bruins and the Maple Leafs. They flashed it up there. This Samsonov, who was in net for Toronto and was 1-4 in the series. And the backup goalie came in, and he was way better. And this Samsonov, who was terrible when he had Samsonov up there in Washington and that aging team was getting older and older. And they flashed up there the worst winning percentages in the playoffs among goaltenders, and there's Saros' name right there. So if I'm going to give you a 6-year contract at $8 million a year, and I'm going to take the 11th overall draft choice from 2020, my top prospect, and I'm going to have him sit the bench and wear a ball cap, and I'm going to pay you all this, you need to win. And he doesn't win. And again, at some point, you've got to win. You can't be on this list of all-time greats and have this horrendous, winning percentage. And again, it's not all about the goalie, but again, he ain't Pecorine. And I think that when you start treating him like, oh, this is going to be like Rene to Saros with Saros to Askarov, you're treating Saros like Rene, and he's not Rene. And I'm not willing to commit to him the way that they committed to him, the way that they committed to Rene. So I'm sorry about it. At some point, you got to win. And I put that Arizona bubble series on Saros, and this one I kind of pin on him too. The Carolina one, not so much. 615-737-1025. We will get to the YouTube chat since our text line apparently is down, and your phones, if you call them in at 615-737-1025. By the way, the YouTube chat is, I think the YouTube chat's a little upset because they're like, you have a YouTube chat every day. Why don't you look at the YouTube chat every day? Dude, I'm monitoring the phones, the text line. I can't look at 18 different chats. Like, I can only look at one at one time. So normally it's a text line. Today it's the YouTube chat. Ian does a fabulous job of monitoring the YouTube chat, which you do every day. You do a good job.
Yes, I do.
There you go. 615-737-1025. Plus, there's another Predator who, boy, we've been talking about him for a long time. And I would just say this. You can root for him, but you probably should bet against him. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
I know Phil Thomasino is obviously still going in the playoffs, but maybe for both of you guys, what kind of reports, evaluations are you hearing on him, and what's he going to need next year to make the jump, for good to the NHL level?
Yeah, the reports I've got, he's played real well down there. I think it's probably been good for him. I think up here, we talked about it mid-season where we felt for his development to have an opportunity to be the type of player we believe he can be, he needs a little bit more. He needed more ice time, he needed a bigger role. He had to grow a little bit, both on and off the ice, I think, a little bit. And from all reports I got, he's right on course. Now, in saying that, for me, I think he needs to grab the little of our identity that we've created here, and he has to have a little bit more of that in him. And if he can, and if he puts the work in, and he's relentless, then his skill will take over. But if he, at different times this year where he wanted the skill first without the work, I'm not sure he has a chance to play for us next year. So we're building him. I think it's, like I said, it's been really good for him. This playoff run will be really, really critical for his career. And I hope he rises to the moment, and I believe he will.
Andrew Burnett yesterday on Philip Thomasino, and I know at the very, very end there he said, I believe he will. But everything he said before I believe he will was I'm rooting for him, but I'm betting against him. He thinks he can just get away with his talent and not put the work in, but you got to put the work in. And so we've spent a long time hoping and waiting and expecting on Philip Thomasino. In fact, Ian, how old is May?
She will be 5.
So Ian's daughter, May, will be 5 years old here very, very soon, I believe next month.
Yes, next month.
So I remember this like it was yesterday, but the day that Philip Thomasino was drafted by the Predators, Ian was on paternity leave because May had just been born. And Floyd and I was looking all day that day for a gift to get for old Ian and Nicole. And I was looking. Like, I hear that from Burnett, where he's like, well, he didn't really want to put the work in, and so he had to grow off the ice. And so this is going to be he's going to have to grab the whole bull by the horns, and he's going to have to this, he's going to have to that, and this is going to be a big year for him. This is going to be big for his career, and this is going to be, but I think he'll do it. Uh-huh. So again, when we think about, okay, which of these young guys, Evangelista, he's made it. I don't think Tomasino's going to make it. Phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. In this case, it's the YouTube chat. So a lot of you in the YouTube chat think that Barry Trotz is lying when he says that he wants to get a deal done with UC Saros. Again, the most of the YouTube chat is this idea that when Trotz says, hey, Saros wants to be here and I want to extend Saros, or he wants to be here and I want to be here. We got to make the numbers work, but he wants to be here and I want him here. Most of you think that that's not true. Steve says, I think he just said that to keep Saros' value up. They're going to trade him for sure, says Steve. Caleb says he 100% agrees with Steve. Somebody else said, yep, Barry is going to keep saying he wants Saros until, boom, he's traded. I don't know if I believe that. Like, I really think that, Barry Trotz.
Sounds like they love him.
I think Barry Trotz thinks that, Saros is good enough to win. And, again, I like Barry Trotz a lot. To me, this is the number one decision that has to be made right now, is the goalie. And I just am completely on the other side of this. That I just don't think that this team can win by paying Saros more money. Now, Willie was even talking about the idea, again, in the fantasy